Are you ready to master the waves of medical device product development? Well, wax up your surfboard because you are listening to Inspired by Imua. And here is your medical device product development expert, that Hawaiian-hearted hostess who will help you hang 10, Meghan Alonso.
And aloha. You're listening to Inspired by Imua, where we help you master the waves of medical product development. Each week, we interview guests that educate, guide, and inspire to give you and your product the skills you need to hang 10. If this is your first time listening, Imua is spelled I-M-U-A, and it's a Hawaiian word. It means to advance forward with passion despite rough waves. There are plenty of those in medical product development, so keep listening because we've got you covered. So today I'm so excited and I want to get on right now and start talking. I have an amazing guest who she was dead for 90 minutes and then brought back to life. So she has a cool story definitely about how medical devices played a role in her life and got her back and up and going to where she is today. So she is the CEO and founder of Live Big and Be Happy, which kind of focuses on living your life with no regrets, which we all should be doing because we only have one, unless you are her, because she kind of has two. So please help me welcome Cherie Aimee. Cherie, are you ready to hang 10?
I'm so ready, Meghan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And talk about Imua. You've definitely, you embody that spirit as well. So I kind of gave a little overview there, but let's dive into what you do with your business first, and then we'll get into the juicy part of your story.
Sure, absolutely. So I run a group right now called Live Big, Be Happy. And in there, it's daily inspirations for living a life of no regrets. And after this whole tragedy that I suffered from 7 years ago now, I have this new perspective, this new outlook on life now, and really about living life to the fullest. I always say I've taken my last breath, and I know what it's like to be on my deathbed. I know what it's like to have the flood of regrets of how I lived my life prior to my death. Because of that, I show up very differently in life now. And I think a lot of people, especially those that have recently gotten to know me online, because that's where my brand needed to begin to come out into the world. I used social media because I was still recovering from my heart transplant. And people feel this fire in me, this passion, this enthusiasm, this momentum and drive. And it really comes from this incredible miracle of being given a new lease on life, a second life, and not many people get a chance to be able to say that, they died and something happened that brought them back to life. And now they have a chance to do it all over again. So in the back of my head, I always have that moment of when I took my last breath, and it is a constant reference point for me where I check in with myself every day and say, am I living life as fully as I possibly can, or am I keeping myself small out of fear? So this group, it is the hub of my brand right now, because I do plan on doing so many things out in the world to help heal so many people and help inspire people to live their best life, and also help remind people, such as these incredible doctors and medical engineers and surgeons that, made the decision to do what they do and to do it so well that they actually brought me back to life.
Mm-hmm. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. Right now, I know we have some people listening that have been kind of flirting with the idea of developing a product that they know could have a big impact on other people's lives. And that's why I love bringing people like Cherie on the podcast that can really push you over and inspire you to just go out there and do it now, because we're limited with our time on earth, and you want to make an impact. So I know we've been waiting, but let's dive into your story. Before you died, before that, what led up to this, and then take us through that journey of everything that happened that one day.
Yeah, sure. So I was running my own digital tech firm, and literally at the height of my success, I'd built a name for myself as a lead tech programmer, a lead project manager. Really worked my way up from digital tech startups. I did a stint for a little bit at Microsoft, worked for different engineering firms, and eventually landed myself working for corporate advertising and marketing, where I handled multi-million-dollar campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. We did a lot of promotional stuff that would eventually be launched on the Oprah Winfrey Show. So it was a very fast-paced, tough industry, but I loved it. I thrived on that type of speed in business, I guess you should say. So I was very active. I was, I guess, a workaholic, you could say. But for me, I kind of use the term passionate. I love being creative. I love what I do. And I left the field. I left a very good salary to start my own digital tech firm. And it was amazing. It took off right away. But very soon after I had a whole staff of over 20 people, I got diagnosed with cancer.
What kind of cancer?
It was Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay. Yeah.
So they treat it. It's about 98% curable. The percentage might be a little higher than that, but it's definitely labeled as a curable cancer. So which means there is a set regimen, there's a set course of a protocol of how to treat it. And I was treated with your 4 standard chemotherapy drugs, and my body was receptive to it. And a few months later, I went into remission, and I finished out the 6 months. It was a very difficult treatment. It's a cumulative, and with that many very harsh drugs. They have to monitor your heart, for heart failure and all of that stuff. So I was cancer-free and well on building my new life, getting my body back and healthy, eating holistic foods, exercising, and really feeling like, okay, like that was just a little bump in the road. And somehow it got undetected that my heart was getting into heart failure. And it took about 3 weeks of undiagnosed tests. And then one day, literally, I wasn't feeling well. My husband rushed me back to the ER. And within 5 minutes of walking in, I flatlined right in his arms.
Wow. So those 3 weeks leading up to it, did you feel any different? Like, did you start to feel lethargic or just not have a lot of energy, or were you dizzy? Any symptoms that you felt?
Yeah, I was starting to feel tired. No, I'm sorry. For that was leading up to the cancer. The symptoms in those 3 weeks were shortness of breath.
Yeah.
So it even got to the point where I would hyperventilate and just collapse to the ground.
Oh.
Yeah. And it almost looked like panic attacks. And I think quite often that can actually get misdiagnosed. But that's kind of what had happened, and it was starting to get treated as like a panic or anxiety attack. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I couldn't breathe, and I ended up going to the emergency room, but they didn't run the appropriate tests, and in fact, they were ready to take my gallbladder out. Yeah, and thankfully, I knew enough to object and say, you don't have enough data, to justify, because they were kind of like, well, we think it's your gallbladder. I'm not quite sure. So I dove in enough and I asked enough questions to realize that they had actually no data that anything was wrong with the gallbladder. So I was like, well, you're not taking my gallbladder out. And thankfully I said that, because I probably would have died right there and then.
Yeah.
But so another 3 weeks went by, and I went to different, I tried to get into different, my doctors that had been taking care of me. And unfortunately, I kept hitting like a gatekeeper that said, well, what are your symptoms? And then when I told the symptoms, they kept saying to go to the ER. And I said, I've already been to the ER. They want to take out my gallbladder. So a lot of balls were dropped.
Yeah.
I never really got a chance to get in to see the doctors, and everything was just kind of missed. So it just led up to that day where my heart just gave out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now let's get into what happened after that. So you came into the ER. It just happened so fast. You flatlined in your husband's arms, and then so what's next?
Yeah. So what I thought, Line, it's interesting because the nurse was starting to put, I think, an IV in me, but she had her back to me. So they were the ones that actually had to tell her something's wrong with her. So then they did the code blue, and from what I hear, the whole emergency room, because it's my local hospital, just turned into utter pandemonium. And I guess, the major doctors were just jumped up on the table and hovered me and went all in on life support.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't get my heart to restart. It wasn't working. So they, did it a little bit longer. And then when it just wasn't sticking, the staff just started preparing for my time of death. And there was one man that was in the room that happened to be my long-term doctor. He was my cardiologist, just randomly happened to be on call. It was a Saturday. He's never on call. And he just happened to be on call. And he was like, I'm not losing her.
Yeah.
And so he ignored all the, everybody trying to call my time of death. And he just, from what I hear, he just ordered everybody like a drill sergeant and told them, because the whole hospital, they had never seen anything like it before. So they kind of, from what it sounded like, they kind of panicked, like didn't know what to do. Like, we've lost her, like, let's call the time of death. And he was like, no. So he had to kind of take control of the room. And it sounds like he had to directly look everybody in the eye and tell them exactly what to do. And he ordered them to continue with CPR long enough for him to figure out what to do. And what he did was he installed a temporary life support. I believe it's the ECMO.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed the oxygen to get to the rest of my organs to bypass my heart, which was no longer beating. So, they had to do this simultaneously. And so at that point, once he finally got it in, I was at that point just being kept alive by, oxygen going to my other organs. The heart had absolutely stopped.
Wow.
Yeah. So at this point, my family has no idea what's going on because they were kind of whisked away. I was rushed into the OR, and, they did everything they could do. And they came back out and told my family, there's nothing else we can do. The only hope is my doctor happened to teach once a month down in New York City at Columbia, New York Presbyterian, one of the top cardiothoracic hospitals in the entire world. He said, let me make a couple of phone calls. And before you knew it, I literally had the top surgeons and their medical teams.
Wow, that's great.
Jump in an ambulance and come get me.
So you were transferred hospitals, or they just came down to the hospital you were at?
So they came up to where I live to come get me.
Okay.
Switch me to their life support. And then they took me back down they would have flown, but I believe there wasn't what do they call those? A helipad or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they had to do via ambulance, and they took me down, and on the way down, they called my husband and, said, follow us down, and basically asked for permission to do open heart surgery. So my husband's freaking out, not understanding. And at this point, my family is not understanding that I'm pretty much dead at this point. And so when I arrived at Columbia, all the records show that I was barely hanging on. There's the tests show there was absolutely no movement in any chamber of my heart. So so they rushed me in. I was in the operating room, open heart surgery for, I think it's somewhere 18 to 20 hours.
Oh,
it was
my gosh.
Yeah, it was very extreme. And what ended up happening was when I came out, I was still in a coma. I had fallen into a coma when I flatlined. And what happened was they kept me alive via what's called a centromag. So it's kind of a larger version of what the LVAD does, but it's an external heart. So it was a full-blown machine that sat next to me that had 6 or 4 very thick tubes that I attached to my stomach and led into my heart that kept the heart or kept the oxygen going into my organs. So it was a massive, massive device that was terrifying looking, but it was keeping me alive. And what ended up happening was every complication happened to me while I was in that comatose state. So we had infectious disease. We had I started bleeding everywhere and they couldn't figure out why. And it turned out that from so much CPR, my ribs had actually punctured my
Oh gosh.
my lungs.
Yeah, that's common that you have broken ribs, but man.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I literally just found that out like 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Because there's parts of my story that to survive this whole ordeal, I didn't want to know as I was going through it. It was such a frightening ordeal that I made sure people around me did not tell me details. I didn't want to know I was dying. I would literally be like, stop telling me that.
Yeah.
And even when I came home, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. It's just, it's unreal to hear people say what happened to me. I'm like, what? And so I literally, like the other day, I had heard somebody had slipped and told me that I was bleeding from everywhere. But I never asked any more details. And the other day, somehow my husband and I were talking about that, and he explained to me it was from the CPR.
Wow. So you had what's the name again? The external heart that you were hooked up to?
So I believe it's called the Centromag. That was one of the major devices that, so I was on every possible life support. So the Centromag, the ECMO, I was on a ventilator because they had to actually stop my lungs from breathing so that they could heal.
Yeah.
So that's why they ended up having to put me on a ventilator. So, they had to hook me up through the neck. Scary.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was wild. I woke up for the first time out of my coma 7 days later, and I could not believe what had happened. I actually thought I was in a car crash. I didn't remember anything.
Yeah, I can't imagine you wake up and you're hooked up to all these machines. And
and then people are telling you you're in New York, and you're like, how did I get in New York? Right?
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget them saying to me, what year is it? And I was like, 2003. And this was 2010.
Wow.
I mean, I had no concept of anything.
Huh.
So it's just that those first few moments are crazy. But then they had to put me back in a coma for another 3 months. And it literally was over 8 weeks of touch and go, not knowing if I would survive. I mean, I literally for about over 8 weeks, I was like 0.00 something % chance of surviving.
So they induced you in a coma after that, or?
Yeah, so they induced me after that. Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, it was rough. It was 3 months in a coma, 4 months total in the hospital. And what happened was, there was so much damage done to my heart when I flatlined that there really was no, once you're hooked up to this Centromag,
it's probably atrophied by then even more.
Yeah, I mean, my heart was still barely functioning again.
Yeah.
So so my family was approached about this amazing new device that had just been FDA approved called the left ventricular assist device. The model is the HeartMate 2 by Thoratec. And they were like, she's young. She's got everything going for her.
How old were you when that happened?
I think I was 30. I want to say 33.
Okay. Yeah. So really, really healthy and a good candidate for just long term.
Yes. So compared to maybe some of the other cases, even though I literally had less than a 1% chance of surviving, they still were like, well, we've got this device, so there's hope. So just that glimpse of hope and these amazing, amazing doctors at New York Presbyterian, it offered this glimmer of light to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very, very hopeful despite the dire circumstances that I could pull through.
Yeah.
And I think they just held on to that. Although it's funny, you talk to them now and they're like, I can't believe you survived. Well, like you were so confident with my family.
Well, I think they have to be, I think. And it's just
Totally.
kind of that whole mentality of, if you're sad, then smile. And that kind of gets you in the mindset of a positive attitude and starts you to believe, okay, this is possible. We can do this. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful they did that because it really did give everybody around us hope, including me. I mean, I remember being hooked up to life support when I was starting to be weaned off. And then now you're like, can you put me back in a coma, please? Um, right? But you're like wide awake, still on life support.
yeah.
And the doctors would come in and they'd be like, you're doing great. And they give me this smile. And it was just like, hope is so powerful. It's
Exactly.
so, yeah, there's just so much to that. And everybody, every staff member, right down to the people that would come in just to clean my room or mop the floors, gave me hope every single day. I mean, it was so powerful. I still see them today and they're like, how are you? So everybody in that hospital setting saved my life.
Yeah, they did.
It's incredible. And yeah, so what ended up happening was to be weaned off life support. Like I said, they had this device known as the LVAD, and it would require another open heart surgery to switch devices. But this device would now be a portable, like a mini version of this heart pump that was keeping me alive.
Yep.
And it would allow you to go home and actually live somewhat of a normal life. So I, had to go through full body rehabilitation and all of that. And I was able to come home. And for 4.5 years, I stayed on that until I got my heart transplant.
So did you say 4.5 years or 4.5 months?
4.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happened was I could not immediately go on the heart transplant list because I had recently had cancer.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So they need to put like 5 years or something like that between because of the you're going to be on immunosuppressant drugs now for the rest of your life. So we kind of waited, I think, a good 5 years, and then they were able to place me. And then I think I waited 1.5 years for my heart.
Wow. So fast forward, what's your life like with the LVAD? I mean, first of all, you were happy to be out of the hospital and you just adapted to having your heart. Did you have it in a fanny pack or like a backpack, or how did you carry it?
So they give you a halter.
Okay.
But the wires there were a lot of wires, obviously, with this device. There are a lot of components to it. There's an internal titanium pump that's, inside you. And then there's a wire that leads out of the side of your stomach that connects to 2 heavy batteries that power the pump. And then there's a controller that actually controls it. And it's got a series of alarms, it's kind of like your iPhone where you can tell how many bars you have left for your battery power.
Yep.
So I was literally like a walking like iPhone, and I would have to check throughout the day. Okay, I've got 3 bars left. I can go grocery shopping, So, and when the battery power would run low, you've got to switch batteries. So there's a lot of training you have to do. There's a lot of mindset training you have to do because it's scary when you're first implanted and this device is keeping you alive. I was so terrified of the device at first, and this happens with a lot of patients, that we don't even want to touch the batteries. We want like the staff. We want like the physical assistant or the or physician's assistant or the nurses or somebody to do it for us.
Yeah.
Because it's so scary. Like, what if I do it wrong? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Is this pump going to stop if I do it wrong? Or if I don't switch the batteries fast enough? Like, is my heart going to be okay? So you have a lot of emotional fears. And I'll never forget, one person up in the rehabilitation floor said to me, you're scared of it right now because you don't know enough about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So they were like, you're going to be here for 2 weeks. Let's just go all in and watch all the videos. I want you to take notes. I want you to write down every question you have about this device. And I want you to keep asking every single day. And don't worry about being a pain in the butt, but get your questions answered I want you to have this LVAD become your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the best advice ever, ever,
That's
because
good.
I got to know that device inside and out so well that I started training the nurses that were taking care of me. Because you have to understand, this was all new. It had just been
Oh,
FDA
that's
approved,
true. Uh-huh.
right? So there were floors in the hospital that were not fully trained yet on what this device even was. So even though they were nurses, it was still kind of like, wait, so I would actually during the day, I would have a room full of nurses and I'd be like, okay, this is how it works. And they loved it. And it was great for me because I started to feel like, wow, I'm helping. Even though I'm in this dire condition, I feel valuable. I feel like the world needs me, right?
Yeah, that's a great feeling too, just when you're rehabilitating from anything, just to have, hey,
Yeah,
this is my purpose right now.
totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so I when I came home, I was very comfortable with it. It was still scary, there's still emotional pieces to it. But, for the most part, my husband is like Mr. Fix It. So he's been in construction for years. He's can fix cars and all that stuff. So what it helped that it didn't fear him. And he understood how the LVAD functions
Mm-hmm.
on an engineer level. So anytime I had any fears, he would be like, oh, no, that's okay. That's because blah, 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 blah. So, we just kind of did it together. And I came home and we just faced it together. And for 4.5 years, I was just determined to live big, be happy. And really just, I didn't know because I wasn't listed yet on the heart transplant. I really didn't know the fate of my future. So I really needed to become best friends with the device because what if I was on it for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Because some people are, you know. So yeah, it's interesting to look back now that I have my heart transplant. It's interesting to look back and to be like, wow, I can't believe I was on a bionic heart for 4.5 years.
So you're looking to connect and, well, I mean, you have in the past, but you always like to get out there and do events or go to the manufacturing company and talk to them and just share your story and really inspire those that are working on medical technology. And then you mentioned you have an upcoming event that's not totally solidified yet. But share with the audience what that is, and I know you want more of this. So if people are listening out there and they hear this, it's kind of an invitation, like, hey, I can speak at your event too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's this amazing event coming up where I'm going to be able to do a 20-minute keynote speech in front of literally the top surgeons, doctors, medical engineers in the heart transplant and medical device arena.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to get up there and speak and share my story in front of all of them. They've personally invited me. They've invited me to the dinner afterwards. So this is literally a dream come true for me because when I got my heart transplant and came back, one of the first things I did before I could even walk again, while I was still at home rehabilitation, I actually wrote my first #1 best-selling book. It's called How to Rock an LVAD Like a Fashionista.
Oh,
It's
that's
called,
cute.
yeah, and it's called 10 Tips to finding the perfect bag for your left ventricular assist device. So we were talking about how I carried it. That's how I carried it in an actual backpack that my husband and I pretty much designed. We took an existing one and we altered it a bit, and it worked so well for me that I had other LVAD patients from different hospitals in the country actually order them from me.
Wow,
So
that's great.
yeah, so I would still love to. We're still contemplating actually creating our own prototype to really help because there's something about carrying it. I was referring to all the wires. There's something about carrying it where when you can hide all the wires and when you can make sure that the device is #1 safe and secure, but #2 where you feel somewhat back to normal and that people aren't going to be staring at you when you're out and all that. It really helps emotionally for your time on the LVAD.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
Yeah, and so that's one of my big goals. But yeah, I love being able to share my story. I love being able to chat. I've been on multiple interviews with top surgeons that do the heart transplants. I was in a documentary by NHK Broadcasting from Japan with a top surgeon, heart transplant surgeon that did my surgery. So I'm open to, speaking events, media appearances, anything that can help support these engineers, doctors, nurses, hospitals that are saving so many lives around the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not only that side of things, but like you mentioned with the book and with the bag and just really connecting with the other patients going through that and easing their mind, giving them kind of like you are their coach through this and really, hey, this is how you live big and be happy, even with an LVAD, and we're going to get through this together. And that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's my biggest joy. I still to this day go and I visit the ICU. Often they'll ask me as well if I would be willing to go visit, any LVAD patients that are struggling emotionally in the hospital. So it's one of my favorite things to do, mostly because I know the power of somebody when they did that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to connect you, like I mentioned offline, I'm connecting you with AJ. And then I have another, one of my other previous guests, Jan PK, also had an LVAD. And I feel like the three of you can band together and kind of head up a support group or just a site where everybody can connect and build a community or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I would love that. It's so needed. It's really, really needed. I think there's definitely support groups that, but I think a lot of what I wanted to create was something slightly different where a lot of times the support groups are great for like some of the medical concerns and stuff like that. But then I found for me that what helped me really heal and find peace on the device was surrounding myself by, like, I shouldn't even say flooding myself with positivity.
Yes.
And things that made me happy. Yeah, that really helped.
Well, good. So speaking of reaching out to you and getting you involved in all different kinds of stuff, how can we reach you?
Yeah, so the best place is you can actually join my free community. It's right on Facebook. So you can do a search within Facebook for #LiveBigBeHappy, or you can go to facebook.com/groups/LiveBigBeHappy. And you can also visit my personal website, which is CherieAimee.com. That's CherieAimee.com.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll link those on the show notes page for you guys in case, and that just makes it easier to go from there. Thank you so much for being on today. And you really have embodied the spirit of Imua. And I know that you already have and continue to do so to kind of share that with others and really push them to move forward in their lives despite the rough waves that they're encountering. So keep doing that.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate this. I really, really do. And I'm excited to actually send this off to my doctors as well so they can share it with others.
Well, mahalo for being on the show today. And I just wanted to remind you guys that if you have that idea that's just been kind of floating around in your head that you haven't done anything with, I have a program for that. I'm wrapping up my beta version, and this will open up soon for you to be a part of the new and refined version. So you can check that out. It's imua-services.com/IIPP, or you can just text the word invention to the number 44222. I'd love to have you be a part of that. And until the next episode, Imua.
Mahalo for joining us. If you're new to riding the waves of medical device product development, or if you've been in development for a while already, Inspired by Imua is here to surf with you. Want to be a master of the waves? Text HANG10, that's HANGTEN, to 44222. We'll send you the most common wipeouts companies make in product development so you can avoid them and reach master wave status. Again, that's hang 10 to 44222. We publish a new episode every Tuesday, so catch us at inspiredbyimua.com. Imua!